Good evening, everyone. My name is Terry McLeod. I'm the Chair of Public Works with the City of Charlottetown. And just want to say good evening to everyone, and thank you all for attending. I'd also like to welcome Mayor Brown and members of the council who are in attendance here this evening. I'd like to also thank everyone who may be participating in tonight's event from home via our live YouTube stream. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for all members of the public to watch once it's uploaded onto our City Charlottetown YouTube page. Before we get started, I'd just like to make note of some general housekeeping reminders. Masks must be worn at all times and in compliance with the CPHO. There will be a question and comment period following the general presentation. Please raise your hand to catch attention of the city employee, and a microphone will be brought to the seat. We would ask that you remain in your seat until the staff member finds you. Just keep your hand up. This is a public works meeting. The goal of this meeting is to collect feedback and incorporate any technical and engineering changes in the final version of the plan before we hand it off to the city's planning department. The planning department will then follow their procedures, including public meetings, in order to have this plan taken to council for adoption through the bylaws. So once again, I would like to thank you all for participating in tonight's meeting, and that I will turn the microphone over to Mr. Alex Forbes, Manager of the Planning Department, and Mr. Scott Adams, Manager of Public Works, to give a quick overview of the project. Thank you very much, Alex. Scott, anything to add?
No, I think Alex covered everything, but like I guess, just like Alex said, we've been working on this for a number of months now, and the goal at the end of the day was to create this this network to, handle the flow of traffic, both in and around these vacant areas, but also for handle our current and future expansion of traffic around the area without this development. So. We put a lot of work into this, so we'll let our consultant here explain it all to you.
Thank you very much, both to you and Alex. I'll now turn the microphone over to Mr. Mark McDonald, the engineer with CBCL, to present the proposed West Worley Commercial Area Master Traffic Plan. Go ahead, Mark.
Thanks, Councillor. Thanks, Scott, as well. Good evening. My name is Mark McDonald, CBCL, traffic engineer with here in the city, and also you can't see him, but my colleague Emmanuel Nicolescu is over in our Halifax office on the line as well. On the line as well. He's a transportation planner. I'll be deferring to him for some of this, but I'm going to kind of lead the presentation, and both of us will be available to answer any questions once we're through. So we've been working with the city now for a while on this. So we've produced the West Worley Commercial Area Transportation Master Plan. Alex walked you through this slide, which demonstrates the landlocked properties. So just to give you a broad overview of what the area looks like out there now, the red boundary you see on the screen behind me indicates the area that was looked at as we considered it the study area for the project. You can see it's bounded to the west by Lower Malpeque Road, North River Road, to the north by the arterial Charlottetown Perimeter Highway, Mount Edward Road to the east, and to the south it's basically an area, a line just below the commercial area, just south of Walmart, and kind of lines up with Kenley Drive to the east and Mount Edward. So the main part of this plan was to develop, to look at traffic and traffic demands through the study area, through the development of a detailed, comprehensive traffic microsimulation model using software called vSim. So this is just to highlight, just a kind of an overview of what that model looks like. If you pull it up on the screen, it shows all of the roadways in the area, all the driveways. There's quite a few different inputs. So roadways and streets, driveways, all the intersections, all the different traffic controls, traffic signals, stop signs, etc. Left and right turning lanes at the intersections, lane geometries, different ramps and such, crosswalks, pedestrian facilities as well, such as crosswalks, sidewalks, transit, any bus stops that are out there, and the transit routes were part of it as well. And for the study, we looked at 3 different time of day scenarios. So we looked at weekday AM and PM peak periods, morning and afternoon, as well as Saturdays. As we know, it's a heavily congested area. It's a intense retail and commercial area, so Saturdays are pretty busy. So yeah, this is basically the same slide I showed you a second ago, but it just gives an overview of the existing streets that are out there today. And you can see all the intersections that were included in the study are highlighted in either red or blue. The signalized ones are in red, and unsignalized stop sign controlled intersections are in blue. And you'll even notice that we included a couple of the kind of intersections at the Charlottetown Mall as well, kind of some of those internal intersections right next to the trail at Towers Road, and then over kind of between next to the Superstore as well. So when so I guess as I was saying, we looked at 2031. We came up with some Alex talked about the different properties, the landlocked areas. So this slide will show you that there's some highlighted properties here. Some of them are already developed, just approved, I guess, north and south of Towers Road. We have the the Sherwood Greens development that's well under construction. Much of it's completed, and still the apartment building back there is under construction today. South of Towers Road, as well as Sherwood Crossing immediately to the north. So as part of this study, we looked at 2 future development horizons, basically 10 and 20 years out, 2031 and 2041. So we had to make certain assumptions as to, I guess, what lands might be developed in these time frames and how they would be developed, what kind of land uses might be coming down the road. So there's also a property kind of opposite Fern Garden. There's a new roadway in there. I think it's St. Martha's Court. And so you can see that the areas shaded in that light orange color we assumed would be residential. And the areas shaded blue would be also developed by 2031, and we assumed that those would be retail or commercial in nature. So that includes the property up adjacent to Malpeque Road and the bypass, that intersection, as well as a couple of properties kind of between Princess Auto and Canadian Tire. These are strictly assumptions. We had to make a lot of assumptions as part of this study to come up with future traffic volumes, future traffic demands. So that's strictly what we assumed as part of this in consultation with the city. And in bit too far. Back it up a bit here. 2041. So 2041, again, we assumed further development of some additional lands. So you can see all the additional blue areas that we assumed would be additional commercial land uses. This, I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide, but it just gives you an idea as to the, I guess, how we carried it out. So each of those parcels of land, undeveloped parcels, we assumed a land use, be it multifamily housing, be it further retail development, shopping center type development, or what have you. And we assumed a size or a density of units per acre or gross leasable square footage per acre in the case of retail, and based on existing, I guess, the density of existing developments, similar developments in the city today. And then based on that, on the number of units or the amount of square footage, we were able to estimate the amount of traffic that may be generated by that land which is currently vacant. So that's kind of what this table outlines. And I should add, during each of the peak period scenarios, so morning, afternoon, and Saturday midday. And once we did that and added that information to the model, this is just a super high-level look at the potential traffic increase, I guess. And I should state that these numbers are, they're not all in one street. They're the number of vehicles, I guess, that you might have within the entire study area street network and in a given hour, a 1 hour period. So this is, so even today you'd see about roughly 7,000 vehicles within that street network entering and exiting, and even vehicles moving between 2 different destinations within the study area, or even passing through it. Passing, say, from Winslow through the study area and heading downtown, for example. And then, so 8,000 and 9,000 within the next couple of years. So similarly, PM peak is busier, and the Saturday peak hour is busier again, particularly in 2041. Totally estimated. So future conditions, 2031. Back to this slide for a second, because this also shows some, I guess, potential street improvements, improving existing roadways, and some potential new roadway links that would be needed to support the development of these lands. So these are some roadways that we looked at in the model with these future estimated volumes. So they show an extension of Spencer Drive to Mount Edward Road. They show a new road between Towers Road and Spencer Drive, adjacent to the trail, and also potentially extending that road northward and looping into Irwin Drive, which would help to open up some of that currently vacant land. Carrying on 2041, we're looking at some more new roads. I guess if you look, the Peter Pan intersection is kind of in the middle. So if you look kind of up and to the left of it, you can see a road over there that would help to open up that property, as well as some additional roads to the north and east of Canadian Tire area. There's also some signal upgrades. I guess the orange stars would indicate some optimizing or capacity increases at some of the existing signals out there, and some widening as well. So we're seeing that by that time, Capitol Drive, a section of Capitol Drive, may need to be widened, as well as Spencer potentially, if these volumes came to fruition. So just to give you a sense, a quick overview of some of the changes to the road network. This is a high-level overview of extending Spencer Drive across the Confederation Trail and tying into Mount Edward Road at Ash. I think pretty soon an upgrade may be needed to the intersection of Spencer and Babineau, potentially signalizing it. The Peter Pan intersection looks fairly similar to what it does today. I guess the only major change that's being shown here is the existing, I guess if you're heading down from the bypass in toward town, so the southbound approach, right now there's a dedicated right turn lane. We're suggesting that should be a through right lane, so that through movements can go through there as well, so that for a total of 2 as well to help improve traffic flow at that location. And this is the intersection of Capitol Drive and Capitol North River, Lower Malpeque, an additional inbound lane here as well. This slide will give you a quick, just a quick look at one of the scenarios. So this is 2041, the Saturday peak hour, and it's just one of the illustrations in the report, and it illustrates both the volume of traffic on the different links and roadways within the study area, as well as average speeds. So you can see that the width, I guess the wider the line, the more traffic is using it. So you can see traffic, the heaviest flows, I guess, are on the bypass and on Capitol Drive, as well as University and Malpeque Road. And the speed, so green indicates higher speed than yellow or orange or red. So you'll see near some of the signalized intersections that the average speeds are lower, to reflect the fact that a lot of the traffic has to slow down or come to a full stop at a red light. And this is an example of another type of graphic that we produce that simply indicates the level of service or the average delay per vehicle experienced at various intersections, each of the study area intersections, and it actually it actually goes through each movement at each intersection, so right and left turns and through movements. I wanted to quickly touch on this is kind of an overview slide that shows some of the major routes, I guess, between the study area, between the major commercial area, and because I'm anticipating there may be a few questions about Ash Drive. So I just wanted to give a quick overview on, and just to kind of show at a high level, bird's eye view of the major routes that that currently link. Like I guess if you're traveling to and from the northeast, so if you're, I guess, primarily St. Peter's Road and Brackley Point Road, if you're traveling between those two routes and Walmart, Canadian Tire, the mall, etc., the dark blue lines kind of show the main routes, right? So they show Malpeque Road, Mount Edward Road, the bypass, and I guess the arrows kind of indicate somebody leaving the commercial area and heading, maybe back home toward the North Shore, toward Mount Stewart, Morel, etc., out St. Peter's Road. So a lot of people would either head north to the bypass on either Malpeque or University Avenue, Mount Edward Road, take the bypass to either Brackley Point Road or St. Peter's. The purple line shows kind of a secondary route, fairly main route, I think, that is used by some folks in East Royalty, maybe some points further out, I'm not sure. And that's basically Oak Drive. So it's Oak Drive over the overpass, the bypass, via the Northridge Parkway roundabout. The other routes that I've indicated here, one of them is Montgomery. It's shown in like teal or turquoise. So it currently lines up with Towers Road, and it's a route that takes you into Sherwood. But as you can see, it's kind of a convoluted route, so it doesn't have a lot of traffic on it. And then Ash Drive is another potential route that people could use. The dashed orange line shows the Spencer Drive extension. But Ash similarly is also a little bit convoluted. It's got not convoluted, but travel times are a little bit reduced because there's the all-way stop at Maple, and then there's a couple of turns that you would have to make to get to Brackley Point Road. Anyway, I just wanted to quickly touch on that, and then I've got a few more slides that give an overview of some of the traffic patterns at those intersections along Mount Edward Road currently. So I've got 3 slides here, one for the weekday morning, weekday afternoon, and the Saturday midday. And they kind of show the breakdown of total. So the total vehicles at the Oak Drive intersection is in orange. So during the AM peak period, you can see that 10% of all vehicles that travel through that intersection are on Oak Drive, or either to or from Oak Drive. At Montgomery, it's 1% of all the traffic at the Mount Edward Road Towers intersection. Excuse me. And at Ash, it's about 5% of all the traffic at that particular intersection. And there's some volumes here as well. So you can see that Mount Edward Road handles very large volumes, as does Towers Road during the AM peak, and even more during the PM. The numbers overall in the PM and Saturday are higher. But the percentages on Ash, Montgomery, and Oak are all stay about the same. So this is PM. So again, it's about 5% on Ash, 2% on Montgomery, and about 11% of the traffic at the Oak Drive intersection is actually traveling on Oak Drive. And during the Saturday peak, it's similar again. I also wanted to quickly touch on future roadways that might be, I guess, any new roadways and even any existing roadways within the study area as they pertain to other modes of transportation other than personal vehicle, passenger vehicle. Because active transportation could play a very large role in helping to reduce the overall traffic demands on these I guess existing and future roadways, particularly as there's It looks like there could be quite a bit of residential developed on the Sherwood side of the Confederation Trail, but adjacent to all the commercial area. So it would be very helpful if there were other alternate modes of transportation that could be used instead of everybody jumping their car to drive 2 minutes to go get groceries. So if there were active transportation, trails, multi-use paths, sidewalks, etc., as well as transit, maybe altered transit routes, enhanced transit service, that would maybe help to reduce some of the future traffic demands and kind of manage that load. So this is just a quick overview of the types of things that can be done, and I'm sure none of it's rocket science, but complete streets is kind of a term used to describe a street that is built and designed and built to accommodate all modes of traffic, including pedestrians and cyclists and transit and other non-motorized modes. And here's, and I guess, yeah, so there's a slide where they've retrofitted an existing street to, I think it was an existing 4-lane cross-section, and they took it down to, they did what's called a road diet, and they made a 3-lane cross-section and added some bike lanes instead of that 4th lane. And similarly here, and I guess in the top left, you can see where there was an existing roadway. It just looks like gravel shoulders, and they narrowed up the asphalt width and added a bike path and a sidewalk. And then there's also some intersection improvements here as well. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mark, for your presentation. That concludes the presentation portion of tonight's meeting. We'll now move into the question and comment portion of the evening. Just another reminder that we would ask anyone hoping to ask a question or provide a comment that they raise their hand and remain in their seats, and a staff member will bring the microphone to you. As well, individuals speaking, we're asking for a maximum time limit of 5 minutes. We're not actually going to time you, but we would like you to keep that in mind as you get up to speak, that for the fairness of everyone, that we all get a chance to speak. So if you can do that, that would be awesome. So with no further ado than that, feel free to ask away. Any questions you may have?
Good evening. My name is Stephen Bowie. I am a longtime resident of Sherwood. And it seems like it's almost a fait accompli that these so-called landlocked areas are going to be developed. And I would say if a developer bought that land knowing they were landlocked, that's something they should take into consideration. That doesn't mean the city or the residents of Sherwood should fall over themselves to accommodate such a thing. There's nothing wrong with having green space. And now I'm going to refer to my notes. In Ontario, the Brampton area, they're talking about pushing through a superhighway, and it's going to cover up thousands of acres of farmland. Now, this isn't Brampton, but I'm going to make a point here. It is going to save drivers between 30 and 60 seconds. There has been entirely too much development going on in Charlottetown under the cover of COVID, in my opinion. I was at the meeting when Tim Banks gave his proposal on APM and whatnot to develop Sherwood Crossing. And I mentioned that Tower Road was a dangerous road for cyclists and pedestrians. And I had talked to a couple of councillors. I was always, oh yes, we're going to have a sidewalk there. And then I was assured by the mayor that they would indeed be putting not just a sidewalk, but bicycle lanes, and this was all going to be done with Sherwood Crossing. But now I see that that was just a ruse to have the developers to have their way to push through Spencer Drive to Ash. That they had no intention. It was disingenuous from the beginning of that meeting. There was no intention of doing anything to Tower Road. So this feels either like it's incompetent or it's duplicitous. Everyone likes a big event. It feels great to build a big building or push through another road, but the infrastructure that is there is left wanting. Nothing ever gets done. There's no improvement. You can always find money to do a new project, but where is the money to make Mount Edward better, to have a proper bike lane, to have turning lanes, to have another pedestrian crossing, for crying out loud? And why are these developers going to pay for this infrastructure? I don't think they are. It's the city, the citizens that pay. And then they put in all these developments. So if there's 800 units, that's probably 2,000 cars sitting in that area. The more, everybody's a two-car family now. My third and last point is that professionals that come to Charlottetown, they make assessments on what kind of amenities are around, and these amenities are recreation, pools, rinks, tennis courts, fitness centers, library, hospitals, and green spaces. My wife and I moved here from BC 24 years ago when she was offered a job at UPEI. And when we came here, before we accepted the position, we thought, gee, is this a good place for our family to grow up? Are there the kind of institutions that will make a difference in our life? And we gave it some time. We thought, well, 5 years would be a good time. And then things started to happen, the Kerry Pool, and we thought, this is a great place. And it has been a fine place for us to live and to raise our children. It has been wonderful. We would like to see more doctors here. We would like to see more researchers, more creative people coming in here as the city grows. But if we are denuding our natural environment, our carbon sanctuaries, and changing the very makeup of a neighborhood by taking the very busy traffic that you pointed out that is on Tower Road, and then all that traffic, or a substantial amount of that, is going to be moved over to what is the new Spencer Drive connecting to Ash. Of course it will. And people will be entering from both sides now. You might say that's not true because, well, people aren't going to come from there, and they'll take the bypass if they're coming from Brackley or St. Peter's Road. There will be a big percentage will use that as a connector road. And anyway, I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Keith Notman. I live at 40 Michelle Crescent. Effectively, I'm at ground zero, and I can give you some real-time information. I don't know what you used for your algorithms for the study that you did, but today, on a Saturday, if I try to pull out of Michelle Crescent, I cannot move either east or west because the traffic that is sitting on Towers Road in both directions is landlocked. That when the light turns red, nothing moves. Effectively, from what I see in this study, you're talking about approving a development across the street from where I can't get out for 800 units. as the gentleman said, that's probably 1,600 cars being added to the existing cars that are already on Towers Road. Now, the fact that you're going to open up Spencer Drive and bring it out to Ash is an unfortunate situation for anybody who lives on Ash, because that's a two-lane highway, a two-lane road, residential, has parks, has post boxes and things. It is not a heavy volume road. I really can't see whether that extension of Spencer Drive is going to change the traffic flow. The problem with traffic is that people follow the same pattern on a regular basis. I've studied that traffic that comes on Towers Road, and 60% of it is heading over to University. They're using it as a through road as opposed to going to the bypass. Psychologically, people don't want to drive on a two-lane road and go to a high-speed arterial road with heavy traffic, heavy trucks, high speeds, to get 2 blocks over to University so that they can head back down to the mall. It just doesn't happen. So taking that into account, you have to figure out how you're going to get more access to the mall from Towers Road and from Mount Edward. I drive Mount Edward on a regular basis, and if you made it a 4-lane highway, it would not handle the traffic that's there on a Saturday and Sunday. How you would do that, I don't know, because you can't expropriate all of the property. I guess I'm talking to City Council and to the mayor at this point, not to somebody who's done a plan that's going out 20 or 30 years. Today is our problem. This development that is being planned is our problem today. And we have to solve the problem before the development happens. Because if you put the apartments in there and then say, oh, gee, we forgot to figure out how all these 800 cars or 1,600 cars are going to get out, my problem is I won't be able to get out of my driveway. So my input to you, Mayor, Council, seriously think about doing something with the roads before you approve this development. Because I know how the Banks organization works. If you give them approval, they will start putting up 800 apartments tomorrow. There is already more apartments, I feel, in Charlottetown than will ever be rented based on the number of people that we have in Charlottetown. What happens when that excess apartment comes online, my developer, my landlord, is going to have to drop his rent to compete. So it's affecting a lot more than just traffic and just development. It's affecting existing landlords. Anyway, I'll leave that with you. As the gentleman says, I don't know whether this has any effect on anything or whether people in council just listen and say, we've made our minds up, so we're doing whatever we think is best. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm Daniel Mullen. I had a couple questions. I'll be very brief. My impression here is that Alex from planning, Scott, who's with Public Works, and Mark McDonald is a very good engineer. They've put together a plan based on the inputs that they have. But the question is, are we looking at everything? When I look at that plan, my concern, of course, is going to be there's a waterway that goes north of where Princess Auto is. So if someone's going to put a street across there, it's not just going to be a street, it's going to have to be some sort of crossing over a watershed. Is that going to be a bridge? Is that going to be a box culvert? Who's going to pay for that? Which brings us to the next thing. We need green space. There's an entire area there that can't be developed. Is there any requirement that the city is willing to put upon the developers to say, give us that land, let's make it into a park lane. Let's make it into a place that's there for the public use. It's green space. Is there going to be a mandate to have playgrounds? Realistically, if there's going to be as many as 1,500 units in that area, by a rule of thumb by a developer, that means there's going to be anywhere between 5,500 and 6,000 people living there, which means you're going to have 1,100 kids that are school age. The Sherwood and West Royalty schools are maxed out. Where's the school going to go? Where's the pedestrian traffic going to go? Where are all the cars going to get parked? Will there be a mandate for underground parking there versus surface parking? Surface parking takes up space that could be best occupied with a building on top. People can be put in high density, but you need to have green areas, and that means a lawn instead of a parking lot in front of your door. It means having places where the kids can go bike to the next building over and see their friends, and it's about having spaces where people can be and get out. And we notice that now with COVID, right? You want to go out for a walk, you want to go out and get some fresh air. We can't pack people in there without having green space. And the city perhaps should enable Mark and Scott and Alex to bring in the sustainability people, to bring in the parks people and say, let's make a plan that encompasses everything. That's the first thing. Secondly, I have a question and a little bit of a challenge. Wow. Have you considered potentially making Ash Drive have a right-hand only turn when you get to Maple? In other words, people would cross Mount Edward Road, and as soon as they get to Maple, they could not continue on. They'd have to turn right onto Maple. If people wanted to keep going through, they'd have to go on to Oak and keep going. That alone changes the psychology of the driver that's thinking, if I go really fast, I can beat the traffic and get to the other side of town. I mean, when you look at a plan on a map, you'll say, no one will ever go through there. But reality is, on a Saturday afternoon, someone's been sitting at the light for 5 minutes, and they think they're late for something, they're going to cut through every other way they can. And people are concerned about going around the park. And if that traffic going up Ash can be redirected onto Maple and can't go through, that slows the people down enough that they might as well go over to Oak in the first place. Other people have also mentioned Mount Edward Road. And if you go out to Mount Edward Road and sit there for 20 minutes and watch the lights like I did today, it's bad. It's really bad. And I would actually say that your estimates of traffic for 2031 are light. And one could potentially, because of the land being developed right now, implement 4 lanes from Towers Road to the bypass. I think that's doable. Going the other way, and it is needed, going the other way from Towers Road to Belvedere Avenue is probably very difficult because there's not much frontage there. But it might be something where you can come and say, let's put in 4 lanes and let's move that traffic along. And lastly, maybe UPEI should be in the discussion as well. UPEI has in their master plan an idea that they'd like to have a street that follows the trail pretty much up to the edge of their property, which is where Towers stops. And they're planning 2 very large apartment buildings with mixed use. And there needs to be some coordination there. There's talk that there's some developers that are looking to put a street on the east side of the Confederation Trail from Belvedere Avenue up at some point. And if that's the case, instead of having 2 lanes on one side and 2 lanes on another, maybe we should be looking at southbound traffic on one side of the trail, northbound on the other side of the trail, and then you have a very well-managed traffic flow, and it's something that's well accepted by the public because the pedestrian traffic and the car traffic all blends together, and it's not people doing right and left-hand turns with a pedestrian way in the middle. It actually could be quite green and quite open. Anyway, that's a lot to take on, but like I said, the challenge there would be, would you consider breaking Ash Drive somewhere in the middle so that the residents would have the feeling this is not going to turn into another Oak Drive? Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Yes, we have. We haven't looked at anything too specific yet, but that is something that could be considered. We also wondered about potentially turn restrictions at, I guess, Thistle. If if you took Ash, if somebody wanted to take Ash all the way to Brackley Point Road and potentially onto the bypass, maybe I guess via Lilac and Thistle. Another option might be turn restrictions at Brackley Point Road and Thistle to limit that as well, to prevent the cut through from Thistle straight through onto the bypass, and maybe even preventing the left turn from Thistle onto Brackley Point Road. So I think something along that line might help as well. At Maple, I guess my concern there might be restricting the movements of Sherwood residents just wanting to travel from place to place along Ash Drive. A turn restriction there may cause an issue. I don't know if that might be a concern, but yes, I think there's definitely some strategies that could be looked at to alleviate that potential concern.
Just interrupt just for a second. Scott, could you perhaps mention something on the idea of at the top of Spencer where it meets Ash, what possibly could be done there?
Yeah, certainly. So another option that we can look at is folks coming out Spencer when they meet Mount Edward Road, we could restrict them to right or left turn movement only. That is something that we've looked at as well, just to eliminate that cut through. So as Mark mentioned, there are a number of different strategies that you can look at. We've gotten a number of concerns from residents already about that, so it is something we have looked at, and there are options out there to help restrict those traffic movements to discourage folks from trying to cut through and go through a neighborhood that they don't live in. So there are a number of options to look at.
Is Debbie Sims. My parents have owned their home on Ash Drive for over 20 years. I'm speaking on their behalf also. We don't want the road on Ash Drive to be extended. We don't want more traffic. It's difficult to get out of the driveway on any given day as it is. And we don't want more noise or pollution. And this shouldn't be done in a residential area. The last thing any of us want to do is look out the window and see more cars and bright lights instead of seeing an open field and homes. Ash Drive is busy enough with cars, buses, runners, children, and people walking and motorcycles. We don't want more traffic. I heard the homes on Mount Edward Road have been sold for the new road before a decision has even been made. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Donna Sims. I've gone to some of your other meetings concerning the Towers Road, and like the other gentleman had said, there was a lot of opinions given then. There were promises made. Towers Road could have been widened where you have open field, make the lane bigger, like the way it used to be. You have straight, you have right, and you have left. People are living there now. They can't get out. It gets congested. There's traffic, and there's so much. If there was ever an emergency, trying to get an ambulance in there would be a nightmare. So things could have been done long ago, and things were promised, like the other man said, but nothing was done. This has been going on for, 2 years now? I do not agree with opening up Ash Drive onto Spencer Drive whatsoever. A suggestion could be you could do it down further where there's open, the gardens are or something, take some of that land, have it further down, but to do it directly across from Ash Drive, I don't agree with it. A lot of people don't. Sitting outside and seeing lights and traffic isn't my idea of a relaxing time. And people need to do other ideas and come up with other means of having than just having it directly right across of people's homes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Drake, and I live on Gamwell Avenue, just off of Ash Drive. I walk to school every day. I drive my bike after school. I visit my friends, and we all play at Mulberry Pike. Why would you suggest to put more traffic next to Mulberry Park, where kids of all ages play all the time? We already know that cars speed through Sherwood, and now you're going to put more cars through that don't even live through this neighborhood, and it doesn't make any sense to us. Thank you.
My name is Laurel Drake, and I also live on Gamwell Avenue off of Ash Drive. As future taxpayers and city residents, we need to protect our neighborhoods. None of us want to live in a neighborhood that is full of commercial traffic in front of our homes. We also need to start protecting our green space in the city. The area behind the mall used to be a golf course and open field, and now it's a high-density housing right next to the Confederation Trail, with another apartment building planned for the other side of the trail. Stop using our neighborhoods and green space as development opportunities. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Derek Tweel. I live in West Royalty. Just judging by the comments tonight, I think City Council has a pretty clear mandate that people don't want a traffic way or a highway put through the residential area. So I think that's quite clear. I think the city has done a pretty good job over the years trying to keep a beautiful city beautiful, and we have a beautiful city. So the other thing I think that's been quite clear tonight is maintaining some green space and holding developers accountable. We have a beautiful spot because Prince Edward Island and our city is green, and there is green spaces, and there's been thought through it. I've noticed myself on the Towers Road that it's a busy spot. Sherrdale, whatever that's called, that little housing area has been put in. There's been no sidewalks on either side of the road on the Towers Road, and it's a shame. And so whatever we do, I think we got to think it through. Once you put blacktop up and once you put commercial up and you don't allow enough green space, it's done, right? There's no going backwards in this city. So a lot more planning has to be done, I think, on green space. Development's going to happen, but we've got to do it properly. We've got to have the proper, like you said, the proper connections, the proper space for turning lanes, the proper space for bike lanes, and the proper space for sidewalks. It's like Capitol Drive. There's a sidewalk on the other side where there's no hotels, and there's no sidewalk when you see on the other side where there is all the hotels. And you walk there and you see people walking, they're going to get killed. So as this young fella said and this young lady said, we don't want thoroughfares through our residential areas. We've got to put more thought into green space and a way to connect the city together in a safe way. Thank you.
My name is Catherine Mullally, and I'm my husband, and I have lived on Mount Edward Road for 44 years. We had 6 children, and all of them managed to get across Mount Edward Road and get their education at Sherwood Elementary and Stone Park without being killed. I wouldn't want to have that challenge today, to train 6 kids to get across that road and back. In any case, I want to back up a bit. One of the things that I'm concerned about is the lack of public information and awareness and involvement in this entire enormous decision. It's going to be transformative of our city, and yet there has seemed to be so little public information and public involvement. I looked, for example, I understand that the councillors, when they come on board, they take an oath to look after the best good of the entire city, not just their ward. So it's all of the wards. So I'm addressing this to you, Mr. McLeod, the mayor and your fellow councillors. There's a bylaw in your code of conduct that says, I should read it off here. Members of council are responsible for the decisions they make. This responsibility includes acts of commission and acts of omission. In turn, decision-making processes must be transparent and subject to public scrutiny. Did the people of Sherwood have a reasonable opportunity to scrutinize the plans for a major change proposed in their community? First of all, there was a public meeting in the summer, PEI in the summer, during a pandemic. That was the first one. Does this show a sincere desire to inform the people affected of the proposal and to involve them in the planning? I don't think so. Then, for example, if you missed the meeting or weren't able to attend, if you went looking for information, you could look at the plan on the city website. Until very recently, they would find a 121-page consultant's report designed, I think, for engineers, and maps that were very challenging to read. It was not designed for public education. That was what part of this process is transparent or open to public scrutiny? Then you have even this meeting tonight. Now, there was one notice in The Guardian. Was there anything more public than that?
Scott, did you want to answer that, please?
Certainly. So for the past couple of weeks, we've been broadcasting on our various social media feeds, as well as I think over 200 letters are hand-delivered to residents last week in the area of Sherwood and Manover Road. So we tried to get the message out as clearly as we could for the meeting. And I just want to let everyone know, too, again, this is just the public works side of things. This will have to be reviewed again by planning to be looked at as putting in forward as a bylaw. So this is the first kind of look at it to hear what the public are saying. How can we incorporate some of these changes into the feedback we're receiving, and then pass that on to planning, who will take it through their phase or their bylaws or policies. So I believe there will be another public meeting through planning. Like I say, they follow their policies once it goes to planning.
Once I've heard from many, many people this is the first I've heard of this. When you talk about 300 unit at Sherwood Crossing that may, mushroom into 1,600, and I've even heard 2,000, and we're working with a draft traffic plan? The order of events is not correct here. Where's the public involvement? Where's the public information? Whose city is this?
So if you would like, I will say that I can't speak for the rest of the council or mayor, but I can speak for myself. As chair of Public Works, I felt this was a very important step, was to create a public meeting. We haven't done a lot of these. We are listening to you. We have heard the problems with the website. We've heard, the information piece, and that's why I was pushing for the staff to have this meeting here tonight, so that we can hear you folks, find out what the issues are. Can we put it to the plan, and can we make something that's going to work for everybody? We're only doing this simply because we're seeing with the development that's happening, we need to control the traffic. We need to put in pedestrian crosswalks, we need to put in multi-purpose paths, we need to put in all what's going to make our community safe, not only for today, but for years down the road. So I'm, this was very important for me to have this meeting, that it's important that people have a chance to show their concerns, and this is the first step. Normally it would just be, it would go to a planning and then move on from there, but so, for a public,
With all due respect, Councillor, you need to control the traffic. You need to control the development.
right? I guess the only answer I can give you on that, I'm not in the planning department, but development creates dollars and cents, and it keeps taxes down. There's a balance, right? There has to be a nice balance there, and we're trying to do the best we can. And development is something that's happening, and it's our job to try and control it the best we can through bylaws and our Planning Act.
It just sounds as though the plans are way down the road and the people are all way back here at the beginning. We haven't been informed, we haven't been involved, there haven't been alternatives. It's as though it was a snowball and nobody had any control of it. Yeah.
Well, all I can say is that's why we're here tonight. I recognize that, and I wanted to make sure that the public would have this opportunity to speak, and we'll address all these concerns at Public Works staff, and we'll go from there. And if it's not a go, it's not a go, and we're hearing you loud and clear.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name's Marianne Gillis, and I live on Oak Drive, so we know all about a busy street. A couple of questions here. One is to do with the presentation. So looking at 2031 and 2041, so you mentioned right now the traffic there in Oak is 11%, 5% in Montgomery, and I think it was 1 or 2% on Ash. So what are you looking at, if we had a development of that 800 unit there across from Sherrdale, and, looking at just the plans there for some of the infrastructure changes, what would the percentages look like there then in the next 10 years or 20 years, or as well in terms of the streets, what would the infrastructure look like there in those streets?
So your concern is Oak, I assume?
I'm asking for the three areas really, because there's people from different areas here.
So, one of the main, I guess I'm hearing a lot of the comments about the congestion on Towers Road. And yes, everyone in the room knows how congested it can be during certain times of the week, certain times of the day. So, the Spencer Drive extension, the main push for that would be to help to alleviate that congestion and to spread it out. We know that there's a lot of traffic that wants to go between the Mount Edward Road corridor and to the other side of the Confederation Trail and into the retail areas and into the mall and all the way over to Capitol Drive and Walmart and Home Depot and that area. And right now, a huge amount of that traffic goes through the mall, cuts through the mall. So Spencer Drive is kind of a natural. Once it's extended, it becomes kind of that natural path. Kind of the main, it would be the kind of the main east-west route through, that connects Sherwood and connects Mount Edward Road to the commercial area and to points beyond. So a lot of that, that's the main reason for that road. When you look at the other side of Mount Edward Road on the residential side, like right now, there are, I think, between Belvedere Avenue and the bypass, I think there's 10 streets that cut through that come off Mount Edward Road and go in to Maple or beyond. And we're talking Pine and Oak and Ferndale and Ash and Kenley and Woodlawn and Hillside, and then there's a couple more. So right now, people go, Towers Road is kind of it's a key link. So there's a lot of traffic on Towers Road that goes in both directions. When folks come out of Towers Road, almost nobody goes straight through to Montgomery and into Sherwood. The numbers demonstrate that, and I think everybody would agree with me, even though Montgomery lines up directly with that road. Most people turn right or left, and they go up Mount Edward Road to the north, and they take Ash or Ferndale or wherever, or all the way to the bypass and beyond, or they turn to the to the south, and they take Oak, Pine, Hillside, Ferndale, whatever. So there's a lot of different streets to take that load, and I think that most of the traffic that takes those side streets is residential traffic. No doubt, I mean, there are people cutting through in a few cases, definitely, absolutely. But I think the main traffic, so Oak Drive, I think, is a different story, because we looked back a couple of slides earlier. So if I bring this one up again, Oak, is that purple line, and it does connect right from Mount Edward Road all the way beyond Brackley Point Road, and it takes you right to the Northridge Parkway roundabout eventually, and St. Peter's Road. So I think there is a certain amount of, a certain number of people that do use that as a bit of a thoroughfare, maybe as an alternative to the bypass. But I don't think that currently happens too much on the other streets, not to that degree. And in future, when we're talking about more, adding more development, more, developing some of that vacant land for residential, adding units, adding people, families, children, etc., and cars. I mean, I heard one gentleman mention 800 units means 1,600 or 2,000 cars. Well, I think anyway, I think the vehicle ownership rate per dwelling is a little bit lower in an apartment as opposed to a single family. Anyways, it's a bunch of cars, but my point would be that those cars are parked most of the time. I mean, it's not like everybody's moving at the same time. So my point with Ash, I do want to touch that, and I want to challenge people's theories with Ash. So people can come out of Towers Drive today and cut up to Ash.
Folks, if we could just keep our comments, let the gentleman answer his question, and we'll move on there. If you have something else, just put your hand up, and we'll just try to keep it in order, please. Thank you.
So I'll try and finish this up. The whole point of this traffic study is to figure out. So yes, if there's more traffic from the 800 unit development, et cetera, and whatever else comes down the road, we do need to put that traffic somewhere. But the key will be to try and have people keep to the main routes, like the Perimeter Highway, keep to University Avenue, Mount Edward Road, et cetera, instead of, make those roads kind of the clear path. And Spencer Drive comes into that as well, the extension, because that's where we want the traffic on those main roads instead of cutting through the neighborhoods as much as possible.
My question, I'm thinking you probably looked at it and took a look and tried to estimate, is it going up from 11% to 15% for Oak Drive, or is it going down or further up? And same with the other streets, Ash, Montgomery, other streets that Pine. I'll be honest, I live between Maple and Mount Edward, and it's very challenging to get onto Mount Edward in the morning to get to work. It's just a stream of traffic straight through. And I have a 19-year-old son now driving, trying to get there. And he actually took the piece of paper for someone at our house that dropped it off for this meeting. And he's 19, and he said, don't tell me you're building more here. We can't even get out off our street right now. We need a light or something down there at the end so that we can get onto Mount Edward Road. So that's where we're at. We've lived there for 25 years, and we've certainly seen a lot of changes, since the overpass and everything down there at the other end for traffic. And it's not just the number of cars that go there, it's the speed of going on that street. And we have a lot of young families moving in around us now. It's kind of that time where things are changing. And so it's challenging to have young kids out there on bikes and other things, and just anybody out trying to use, travel through the streets when you have people going down there like they're on the highway. And there's nothing really being done about that. So that's our concern.
Good evening. My name is Peter McDougall. I'm here as an advisor to the St. Dunstan's Board of Governors. And the Board of Governors would like to state, just for the record, that they're opposed to the Transportation Master Plan for West Royalty commercial area as it pertains to the property owned by SDA. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Barbara Dilla. Actually, I think I have a simple solution to the Towers Road dilemma. Just make it a cul-de-sac. Voila. That's not really what I wanted to say, though it has entered my mind several times. So I've done some research, and across Canada, most municipalities, actually all municipalities, generally define a transportation master plan as a document that guides a municipality's transportation investment and activities. And it typically uses a strategic framework that incorporates the city's vision, feedback from the community, and an analysis of transportation challenges and opportunities. So we're talking transportation, not just traffic. Mr. McDonald, you just mentioned it in answering the lady just beforehand. You called it a traffic study. And that's exactly what it is. It's a traffic study. It doesn't encompass all forms of transportation. And in this day and age, especially since the pandemic, many municipalities are going towards public transit and active travel and are doing their darndest to reduce cars on the roads. What you are doing instead is you've been asked to study traffic in such a way that it takes into consideration only vehicular traffic. And as they say, induced demand is if you build it, they will come. And the reverse holds true for all other forms of transportation. There's no mention anywhere, except towards the end where you brought in the complete streets, but there's nothing not much in your plan, which again is more of a traffic study on how to move cars, and not recommendations on enhancing and increasing public transportation, on enhancing and increasing active travel, which is cycling and pedestrian and walking. So why was all of this done just with cars in mind?
As I mentioned at the first of, I guess earlier in the presentation, the model does, the transportation, it was a transportation master plan. It did take into account other modes of transportation as well. The recommendations are primarily related to the roads, but there's also recommendations in the report for new roads to be built with active transportation in mind, with multi-use paths, of course with sidewalks, pedestrian improvements at the existing and future intersections, and I think it would be up to T3 Transit probably to take a look at their routes, but I think as these roads, as improvements are made, as new links are created, I think it would be a good idea for them to, review their routes and consider enhancing or adding to the current service that's out there to provide enhanced transit service as well. But certainly active transportation, we would envision active transportation facilities being a very important part of the plan as well.
But it's not actually part of what you show as being a transportation. This is not a transportation plan. transportation plan, there are currently 7 municipalities in Canada who are either creating or updating their transportation master plan, not their traffic plan. And the smallest one is about 12,000, population of 12,000, and the biggest is about 1 million. What all of them have in common on all of their websites are two things. One is it all starts off with public input, be it a 2, 3, 4 week, 2-month period where people can answer surveys or provide their opinions and thoughts about the transportation needs of the city in the future. It's not just about building new roads. We don't want new roads. We want to have the roads used better in a more efficient manner, fewer cars, and enabling more people to be able to take better transportation, better public transportation, be able to leave their cars at home, use electric bicycles. The other thing that they all have in common are project timelines. And the first part of that project is the public input and public and all stakeholders' contribution as a start. We're now at the end of that process because we're being shown a draft plan to be finalized within the next little while. Why are we at the end of the process? Why are we not at the beginning of the process?
I guess for those transportation, those are citywide. We're trying to zero in on this area because we do see a lot of development that wants to take place in this area. So we want to get out in the front ahead of these people that want to come and develop these areas and have these plans in place. And so we want to present something to the public so that they could comment and provide feedback on. We felt it was a better way to start with a base document to receive feedback on so that the residents could see where we were trying to lead and try to take that feedback we get from residents and incorporate that into the final plan. And that's why it was a draft plan, is because we wanted to have that base document to have this presentation and these discussions with residents.
Thank you very much. Which brings back the point that somebody else had mentioned. You're basically catering to the developers. We're the residents who live here, who spend our every day here, who try and do the best we can for our city. Yes, of course we pay our taxes, but it's not just taxes that count when somebody lives here. It's also the community involvement of living in a community, of living in a place that's livable, where people can live, and it's not just about cars and cars driving through. We want to live here and be able to be safe on our streets, that we can walk and cross sidewalks and have good sidewalks, as I think Mr. Bowie mentioned, or someone that the city seems to enjoy building new, but it isn't doing much with maintaining what's already there. We have many, many cracked sidewalks, disappearing sidewalks. That's nothing new. And just to conclude, so that other people have a chance to say something, the cover letter by CBCL to yourself, Mr. Adams, is, we understand there is increasing pressure from several property owners, primarily north and east of the Charlottetown Mall, to obtain city approval to move forward with various development plans. So again, it's about the developers, it's not about the residents who live here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Evans, and we live on Gamwell Avenue, also off of Ash Drive, and you heard our children speak earlier tonight. Certainly, I appreciate the need for development, and I see the value in development in my day job, and we're not anti-development, but I really need you to consider where the development is taking place. This is a neighborhood. We purchased our homes in Sherwood so our kids could ride their bikes and can walk to school and can play in Mulberry Park. So it astonishes me that this traffic plan would put an extension of Spencer Drive right by Mulberry Park. If you visit that park 10 months of the year, you see that it is being used by kids all the time. And like one of the other speakers said, today, even today, when John and his friends go out on their bikes, I hold my breath until they're back home. If you spend any time on Maple Avenue, which I do, running and walking several mornings a week, people are constantly speeding through Oak and Pine. They do not stop at those four-way stop signs now. They are using it as a cut-through. These are not residents, because as residents, we know there's a four-way stop. We know there's kids on bikes. We know that. So if you're going to extend Spencer Drive in through Mulberry, that is more of a cut-through. That is more traffic, high-density traffic. I really need you to consider the safety of your plan, because this is very much a family neighborhood. There's a reason we live there, and there is a place for development. We appreciate that. But I love that our kids here tonight are talking about the need for green space. And we have to remember that too. But I really encourage the councillors who don't live in our neighborhoods, come and see the traffic now cutting through Pine and Oak. And you want to put more traffic through there, it's a very dangerous situation. So I just really want you to consider that. As parents and residents, we are very concerned about that extension of Spencer Drive. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Charles Kelleher. I live on Ash Drive. I'm just curious as to whether or not you took into consideration when you proposed the extension of Spencer Drive that you were effectively making a direct route from the bridge to Surrey. And it will be the shortest direct route on Prince Edward Island from the bridge to Surrey. Did you take that into consideration?
The Hillsborough Bridge?
The Confederation Bridge.
The Confederation Bridge, thank you. That was not a consideration, no.
Do you see how it happens now?
I guess if you were to draw a straight line, perhaps.
Well, that's the shortest distance between 2 points.
Yes.
So my second question is it by coincidence or is it by engineering good planning that Spencer Drive needs to be perpendicular to Ash? Can't it go down to the left, closer to the bypass, where you want the traffic to go? You don't want the traffic to go on Ash Drive. You want it to go on the bypass.
We took, I guess, brief looks at other potential options. I guess if you look at the map, there's, so Capitol Drive, we all know, is a fairly major route that connects, University Avenue toward the west. And extending Spencer, I don't know, Ash is basically a logical connection point. It is a straight line. To move it, I guess, to move it to the north or south, you could do that. I don't know if it would make everything I've said tonight. And I would like to address. I'm not a resident of Sherwood. I do live further out of town, but my kids attend Sherwood Elementary, and I spend half the winter at Cody Banks. And so I'm very familiar with the traffic and the speeds on Maple. And driver behavior at the four-way stops, probably not perfect, but I really haven't. I drive through them very frequently, very regularly, and I don't see huge issues with people rolling through the stops. Just in my experience. The only way to move it would be to the north, and that could be considered, and bring it out to a T intersection. It would require further study, but we think it's the most logical point. to bring it in there and create a four-way intersection. It will also, it will also help with just the overall connectivity through there. But as I've said, there's changes that can be made to Ash if needed, to Ash, or to help, I guess, restrict the connection to it at the Brackley Point Road end. I guess one of my overall questions would be, if there is cut-through traffic, who's cutting through Ash right now? Because it basically comes down to travel time. If people think it's going to be quicker to go through Ash than it is to use the bypass, then they might do it. But I'm struggling to see how it would be quicker to do that when you have a four-way stop and you've got a couple of turns. It's already somewhat of a convoluted road, and I think there's strategies that could be made to make it, to even slow down speeds and make it, to reduce potential travel time through there, to continue to make the bypass, the obvious better option. So, yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about that for the moment. Mulberry Park. So my thought, I've already stated a few times that I don't see much. Okay, I don't see a lot of cut-through traffic happening there today, and I don't think that's going to change a huge amount. Just because Spencer lines up with it, I think people are going to continue to turn right and left on Mount Edward Road, the same as they do at Towers Road right now. I think people are going to continue to, for the most part, the regional traffic, I think for the most part, is going to use Mount Edward Road to the north and south rather than cutting through Sherwood, because I don't think there's any travel time advantage to cutting through.
As for Towers Road, when you put in the new subdivision, you guys should have thought about the traffic then, and you're trying to find a solution now. That should have been thought of before you planned to put them there in the first place. And now you're trying to make Ash Drive by putting Spencer Drive. You're just going to make more traffic on Mount Edward Road that's already there. It's not a solution.
I have a question. On Towers Road, before those apartment buildings were put in, when you're going from the mall to Ash Drive or Mount Edward Road, you could go left, you could go straight, and you could go right. The simple thing is, why can you not put in the right lane back? Because you know what? The cars are still, when I'm going straight through, the cars are still cutting beside me to go right. Someone's going to get killed there. There's people standing there and walking. 2 years later, why can't you widen the road, put in the right lane the way it was? Simple. A simple thing to do.
Good evening. My name is Don Reid. My wife and I have lived in Sherwood for 42 years on Ash Drive. And my question is why CBCL are so fixated on the Spencer extension. Could you put the slide up again there for 2041? Okay, that's it. Yeah. So what I see from that picture is that there's a road being constructed behind Canadian Tire going across to connect up with that extension of, what is that, Amber's Court or whatever it's called? St. Martha's Court. Well, you're already just about to the bypass, so why, you can see the red there. Why wouldn't you have just made a Y there and go down to the bypass? You'll have to make a roundabout to get onto the bypass, but that's an eventuality anyway. If you ever go out Mount Edward Road to towards the Sherwood Road, there's always a traffic problem at that intersection. The traffic backs up tremendously. So I just don't understand why you don't see that from an engineering point of view. It's obvious that that's an access to the bypass, and that's what the bypass was built for. We don't want the traffic on Mount Edward Road. We don't want it on Ash Drive or Pine or Oak. This, to me, is not a true master traffic plan, as Barbara said earlier. This is a traffic study, basically. And to me, what it reminds me of, this whole scenario reminds me of a bottle of champagne that's well shook up. When you pop the cork, you know a couple of things. There's going to be a mess, and somebody's got to clean it up. The thing that you don't know is how big that mess is going to be and what it's going to take to clean it up, or what it's going to cost. That's this scenario that you're putting forward to the citizens of Sherwood here tonight. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Beth Cullen. I'm a resident of the city. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you, Public Works, for putting something forward for a discussion. And I know that it's not your department, it's the planning department that's responsible for all of the development. And the sense I'm getting from the speakers tonight is that we're pretty upset about the level of development currently happening in the city and the type of development. And we are a small city, and the planning department and the public works department should be able to work together. I'm just terrified at the thought of all of these multi-unit buildings yet to come, because we have so many already and they have come so quickly. We can't handle that in this city, I don't think. But my main concern here this evening is the impact that this proposed project is going to have on the Confederation Trail. It's the gem, it's a gem of our city. And we have really, really large apartment buildings already being constructed there. And we have several. I walk from the 1911 jail out to the highway and back. It's a beautiful, natural space, and it's just been a lifeline for me during COVID. But I have to cross 3 really busy highways already. And I know that there is a pedestrian crosswalk, and yes, there are buttons to alert the pedestrian light. And 99% of the time, the courteous drivers stop for me so that I can cross. I'm not worried about those drivers. I'm worried about this people coming behind them at such excessive speeds. And so when they stop for me, I run as fast as I can across those highways so that those cars can get moving so they don't get run into from behind. And now I feel that the trail is being further threatened. For one thing, I don't want a big highway adjacent to the Confederation Trail. I don't want all these big, massive, not so attractive buildings, and I don't want all this extra traffic. And I really want you to, yes, address the traffic issue, but could we be more creative and more thoughtful to protect this beautiful natural resource that we have? I'm also seeing similar developments happening along the other beautiful gem in this city, and that is the boardwalk around Victoria Park and the Irish Memorial. And we've got apartment buildings going up there. They are going to destroy these natural spaces that the public is enjoying, and they need it for their mental and physical health. And I'm worried that all of this work that we're doing isn't even taking any of that into consideration. And I'm asking you, as a council to consider that every single time. Consider the natural gifts that we have here and that people want to live healthy lives. Protect these trails. Thank you.
Can I respond to that really quickly? Yes, the Confederation Trail absolutely is a jewel. I'll agree with you 100% on that. And in developing this plan, there were a couple of other options that we explored, and some of them included additional new roads crossing the trail, and we wanted to minimize those as much as possible. So, I mean, there's a need to connect the land on both sides of the Confederation Trail. Right now, Towers Road is it, so Spencer will be one additional crossing, unfortunately, of the trail, but beyond that, we don't want any more connections. So anyway, that was the reason. We were well aware of the value of that trail, and a main objective was to minimize the number of crossings across it.
Okay, good evening. The name's Andrea Battison. First of all, I'd really like to thank, as our last person who spoke, Public Works for, creating an extra opportunity for public engagement. And I'd also like to thank everybody who came out here tonight and who's sitting here and staying and listening and hopefully watching at home, and who may, in the days to come, watch this live recording at home, think about what they've heard and what other people have said, and make your comments and submit them. And what I would like to ask is, in the interest of transparency that a woman brought up earlier, is I'd ask council I'm assuming some letters have already been submitted on this, is that correct? Have the utility or public works?
That's correct, yeah. We've received some feedback, so we've been advertising that for a number of weeks now, that we have been receiving feedback. And we'll still continue to receive feedback after this meeting. I think up until May 7th, I think is what we put. We're hoping to have all feedback by then.
Okay, I'm sure you will. And what I would like to request of this council for this meeting and others in the future is that the letters and the comments either be provided in some format that they can be viewed at City Hall by everyone else who would like to see that. If questions have been asked in those letters of any department, that they be answered, because not everyone can come out to a public forum and hear the answers to those questions, and that those answers be made available to the public in some manner so that everybody can hear what everyone else is thinking, and it will help them to build opinions and comments and better understand all the different perspectives of what's being discussed at public meetings. But that's a general question. On to tonight, I did want to ask the presenters some questions pertaining to the project. And as was mentioned before, there was some quotes from the executive summary saying, several of these property owners are now looking to develop their land, so the City of Charlottetown commissioned this study. So I'd like to ask the question, was this study done with tax money? Are city taxes to pay for this study for the developers to get a better plan so that their life would be easier to slot projects into it, or this to be approved? So that's a question to be answered by somebody, please.
I'll try and answer that for you. This meeting tonight is about trying to get some of the questions that you have on your plate, and it's part of the Public Works budget to put this on and to get clarity from what the residents are looking for. We know that there's a traffic issue. We've got a design there. Is it perfect? No. We definitely got some homework to do, as tonight predicts. And but again, yes, this is taxpayers' dollars. But at the end of the day, it's not about helping the developer. This is about helping the citizens of Charlottetown.
All right. Okay. So my next follow-up on that is that has the city conducted its own study or requested its own study to be done to determine the best use of this area before it is irreversibly transformed? Many people in attendance tonight are indicating that they would like to see the area remain as a parkland, green space, something for public enjoyment, activity, whatever. Has the city considered contacting urban planners or sustainability planners? As they have in the past, they've used urban strategy and the planning partnership that really engaged with the city residents to come up with what might be different recommendations. You know, maintain it as a natural green reserve, mix of active transport, recreation, as the city of Charlottetown in this province tries to build for the future in a sustainable manner. Myself, I wouldn't know what's the best use of that area, because that's not my specialty, which is exactly why I would be asking questions and getting advice before moving ahead with the first idea that was proposed by people who are in a hurry to have a decision made. And I would be as audacious as to suggest perhaps the city, in conjunction with the province, might want to put out a request for proposal on a national scale to attract ideas that are really creative and innovative and looking to the future, and make this city and that area something that says, this is what our future should be for living in an urban environment, a mix. This is how we can work to the future, not build for the past, which we're seeing what trouble that's putting us in. So that's just a question, an idea. A question that was asked by someone previously that I did not hear an answer for is that the project looks to put a road that crosses a ravine or a watershed, and I'm wondering how that's being dealt with. I've seen a similar potential encroachment on the watershed with the new university campus road that accesses onto University Avenue down by the ravine there. So if the traffic study person, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, if you could tell me how you're addressing crossing a watershed or a ravine.
It wasn't really part of the study. Yes, we are showing a road that potentially crosses that area. It would connect to Irwin Drive, the Irwin Drive intersection. But as you know, Malpeque Road already crosses that watershed. There's a box culvert or something under there, I believe, to handle the flow. So we would expect something very similar for a road extension if that does indeed happen down the road.
Okay, and then this will make my last comment. During your presentation, I heard the statements, we had to make assumptions, we assume this, we assume that, possible scenario. So could I please ask where you got your input for your assumptions? Again, was it just developers want to develop? And this goes back to, you know, the cart before the horse that's been brought up a few times. What order do you do these things in? Do you get a bunch of ideas brought in by the community or the city or from whoever, make a decision on an idea that's acceptable and wanted, and then go forward? So could you have had input on some other format and have figured out how to create traffic flow around a public amenity, perhaps?
Potentially. This, yeah, so this, you're right, we had to make assumptions. We had to, part of the assignment was to estimate future traffic volumes or the demands of traffic and transportation through the study area. So as part of that, we needed to make an assumption as to how those undeveloped lands might be used in the future. And as you saw, we generally assumed the Sherwood side of the Confederation Trail would be residential, and the rest of it would be potentially commercial. And that's what we enabled us to estimate future volumes.
Okay, so just for clarification though, you must have had some input from somewhere to decide that it would probably be residential rather than parkland.
Yes, in consultation with city staff, public works and planning staff.
Okay, so again, I'll back up the horse a bit more. If someone from Public Works or Planning could suggest where the input came to make the decision for residential, what was that based on?
So there have been, as Alex Forrest, manager of planning, alluded to earlier, so we've had developers that own, so all these properties are privately owned properties. They've approached the city and have been wanting to develop various parcels along the way, and we've been trying to hold them off. Just for the fact we want to try to, we don't want a bunch of driveways onto Mount Edward Road. We want to try to manage that traffic in a systematic way that works better for the neighborhood. So some of these assumptions were based on discussions that developers have, preliminary discussions that we've had with some developers in the area, just some ideas of what they thought the property would look like in the future and when they do want to develop.
Okay, so as the follow-up to that, you had a lot of people in this room, their discussions preliminary would suggest they prefer it to be a green space. Can you take that to your traffic study or your planning, to the planning department and say, what can we do with that suggestion and propose a plan?
It's definitely something we will take under advisement when we go back and meet with staff and council, of course.
No, that's great, thank you. Again, it's just getting lots of input and transparency and openness and involving the citizens of this city from the beginning, not at the end, which has been pointed out by a number of people here tonight. So thank you.
If I may just interrupt, we have approximately about 10 minutes left, so if we can keep our questions down to a minimum and try to get some new people to ask questions, or anyone that hasn't asked one yet, would be great. So we have roughly about 10 minutes left. Thank you.
Good evening, it's Ian Rudd. I live on Ash Drive. I just have a short comment. In addition to all the letters and emails and posts of social media that have been made, I have close to 250 signed petitions from residents in the affected area, and I just wanted to find out who I could leave them with. Okay, thank you.
Yes, good day. I'm Chuck Snow. I live on Ash Drive. There's been a lot of discussion here about traffic flow and traffic volume. I'd just like to know where you got your figures. You keep talking about assumptions. I'd like to know where you did traffic counts, what roads you used, and when you did them.
Yeah, if I can backtrack several slides here. We did traffic counts. Yeah, so as I mentioned, we covered 3 different scenarios: weekday, mornings and afternoons during weekdays, as well as Saturdays. So if I go way back here, we did traffic counts. The weekday traffic counts were primarily done pre-COVID, pre-pandemic. They're mostly from 2019. The Saturday counts that we did were done, I think, generally last June and July. So they were during the pandemic, but they were Saturday traffic. So we knew that weekday traffic at that time certainly wasn't anywhere near normal. Saturday traffic was pretty close, however, because the city monitors, has a permanent traffic monitoring station at the Queen's Arms intersection, Capitol and North River Road. And from monitoring that, we could see that traffic plummeted in mid-March of last year, and then slowly over the next few months kind of worked its way back up. So that I think at the time we did those counts, they were like 95% of normal volumes on Saturdays. So that's when we did the counts.
Okay, so that data is 2 years old, and some of it for Saturday is done during the pandemic.
Correct.
So I would suggest you could throw those in the garbage and start afresh. And I would suggest if you're going further, that you should be monitoring Mount Edward Road, you should be monitoring Ash, you should be monitoring all the roads that are going onto Mount Edward Road with an actual count. not an assumption or an estimation.
We did, so to follow up, sir, we did do counts along Mount Edward Road at the bypass, Fern Garden, Ash, Towers, and Oak, which are the 5 intersections adjacent to the study area.
And when did you do them?
As I just said, some of them were 2019, and the weekday ones were 2019, and the Saturday ones were mid-2020.
During COVID with no summer traffic, and your data is 2 years old. So I would suggest that you have to revamp those and do them again.
Fair enough.
Hi, Fatty Rashid. I just live on Gamwell, and I know most of these people are my neighbors. I just want to thank everybody. You know, this has been really informative for me too. I have a young family over there, and my question is, and I don't even know if this is something my neighbors would even want on Ash, but is there any way to make it an exit only and take it out of the equation? From Nottingham to Mount Edward? Is that even something that anybody, not a whole one way, but basically you can only leave out of that area?
We did look at an option that, and essentially, so people come from the Spencer extension can only go left or right. And for people on Ash, you could probably come out of Ash, and to turn into Ash, you had to be coming up Manover Road and make a right turn to go in.
Right,
So
you could leave out of Ash but not go up on Ash, is that what you're saying?
you can leave, and you can go up on Ash, but you have to be coming from the downtown direction on Manover Road, heading towards the bypass, and a right in.
I think you should seriously consider that because emotions are high. And also with developers, especially high-density developers, and I know the city needs development, and I know that. There's always a housing crisis. But if they can build 1,600 units, they will build 1,600 units. And you can see that with the Sherwood there on the Towers Road, those developments, they have crammed them in there so tight, and they're still going to keep building. And I'm sure you guys are taking this under consideration, but their fears on Mount Edward Road are justified because, and this gentleman is right, like in the last few years, it has gotten busier and it is harder, even when I take the kids in the morning, it is harder to get out there. And those problems are just going to be compounded. And I'm not saying that, like, I'm not naive. I know this is going to happen in some way or another. And we can only do what we can do, but you guys have to take these considerations seriously because that road, that Mount Edward Road is congested as it is, and it's just going to get worse. So there has to be some kind of solution for that. I like the gentleman's idea of extending that out St. Margaret's there, going out to the roundabout, making it making the highway a roundabout. That'd be fantastic, and get rid of Spencer altogether. But Towers would still need to be dealt with. So all these concerns, they're right. There are major problems, and when you add in 800, 1,500 more units, it's just it's going to get crazy. It's going to get crazy. That's all. Thank you very much.
My name's Roy Gorbat. I own some property there that's landlocked, and I hear these people. When I went to school in Sherwood, I walked through the apple orchard and the farm, Ash Drive and them. There was nothing there. I know you have to develop it, but you gotta make it safe for the kids and stuff. But my land, if they make it green land, are they all gonna buy it? I want to sell my property sometime, because other people sold their property. And I understand their safety in that, because I went to school. Like I said, I walked through, it was all fields and farmland when I lived in Mount Edward Road and went to school. So I hope you make it safe for them. But I'd like to unlock my land to be landlocked, because that's what it is right now. Just farmland. It's all you're getting taxes for is farmland. Thank you.
Hi, Steve Leclerc, lifetime resident Sherwood. Just a couple of quick questions on the traffic study. One, when you talk about counts from Towers Road, have you taken into consideration the extension of Spencer Drive would essentially become a highway connecting pretty much to the Trans-Canada Highway? Why I ask that The numbers, using a parking lot by cinema, that back road to count what you're going to get as a modern highway connecting the highway, isn't apples to apples, in my opinion. Secondly, I respect everyone here, and there's been a lot of protection of Ash Drive, but another question would be, does Sherwood end at Oak Drive? Because I'll tell you right now, if you divert from Ash, which you should do, where's the spillage going to go? It's going to go to Oak and Pine and everywhere else, and with no disrespect to anyone, I live there, I walk in Sherwood every day, and your belief on Oak and Pine and the existing traffic, you're wrong, dead wrong. One more question as far as your study goes. You speak of north and I guess northeast. Southport or Stratford, an area, is a very large part of our province as well. What about that traffic? Again, once you create this highway, is what you're doing, you don't think people from Stratford are going to start using Pine and Oak and whatever other extension to get to Mount Edward to get to the highway? They don't go there now to get to Towers Road. Turned into a highway, they'll be there. I think that should really be considered, or maybe it was. Thank you. Sorry. One last thing was probably the thing I was most interested in was I understand the division between province and city. However, there was just a multi-million-dollar project completed to divert traffic around Cornwall, an area that when people purchase land or own businesses there, they're very aware that was, yes, it's a piece of the highway. So now, a couple of years later, or whatever the time frame is, our city has decided to divert the highway, shopping mall, and new development traffic right into the residential community. And to me, that makes absolutely no sense.
We'll probably have time for just one or two more. It is 9 now, and we have a book just till 9. So if we can just make it a short couple more questions, and then I'll explain about how you can further get into communication with us, and how to send email and that type of thing.
Good evening. My name is Heather McLeod. I live at 37 Ash Drive. I am kitty corner to the park. I may get emotional. This is very close to my heart. I've lived there for 22 years. My late husband and I went to Sherwood. We thought we'd live there for 5 years. We liked it so much we stayed. One of the reasons we bought Ash Drive was because it was not a through street. My late husband was visually impaired, so it was quite safe for him to walk around our neighborhood. Because I'm so close to the park, I see between 25 and 30 people come up the street with their kids during the summer, take their bikes, with training wheels, take their tricycles, and drive around the parking lot at the park. Also, lots of soccer there. There's lots of people, probably between 20 and 30 people, come up my street in the summer for about three seasons with their dogs and take their dogs to the park. So I want to paint a lovely picture for you. We've been just voted one of the best cities to live in Canada. When I describe my place, I have a supplementary apartment, and I say I live in a nice, quiet neighborhood. Last night, I was in my upstairs window. I looked out, and I saw a father and his 2 sons, 3.5 and 5.5, going down the street, and each of them were carrying a ball. And the 2 boys, their body language, they were so proud to be able to walk down the street and take the ball. They had fun at the park. If this road goes through, it's going to endanger the children. They'll not be able to carry balls because they'll always have to hold on to the hands of their parents. Now, you said the word assume, and I think too many times in your presentation. You also gave drivers credit because you said logical things about drivers. There's a lot of drivers that are not very logical. If you make this through there, now you talked about the traffic from Stratford. I'm more concerned about the traffic that's coming from the west. They're going to come right across and go quickly. So you've made the bypass, which is 4 blocks away, obsolete. I'm very concerned about that, where Spencer would cross Mount Edward, that intersection. I'm concerned about the park. Some people said, oh, well, you know, the traffic will come up Ash Drive and go on Maple. I live 2 houses from there, so I'm out of that. But I'm concerned for, what about the people that are living south of me, west of me, excuse me? They get to have a vote too. The people on Mount Edward, we have a lot of infrastructure right now that's broken and not working. And you want to add to the problem? My other concern was very much about the trail. What are you going to do there? Yes, at the end of Tower Drive, we have to stop. But ever since Tower Drive went in there, people knew they had to either stop for the railroad or now the rails for trails. Are we going to do an overhead bypass, like pedway? When I was thinking about that the other evening, I thought, eureka. This reminds me of the history of PEI. When the railroad was put in, the railway was put from point A to point B to point C because landowners wanted their land to be connected to get extra money from the provincial and the federal government. So, you are proposing and planning to make roads, not for those of us that already live here, and not to help the traffic flow now, but to connect the developers' places. Please, City Council, when you look at this new tax money with glee and rub your hands with that anticipation, don't forget the ones of us who have paid taxes in this community and added to this community for years. My only question after all those statements is to stop the flow of traffic from the west to the east. When you got to the intersection right where you could even turn down to Sobeys or to Canadian Tire or to go up to the, could you not make that a one-way street? So that new development, they can go out, but the traffic coming from the west to the east can't get in, and it won't make it such a big highway. Thank you for your time consideration. You've said you've worked hard on this thing. I've worked in my gardens and planted trees and did all kinds of things in my house for the last 22 years. And it's my home. And please, keep it and the children safe. A society is judged on how they treat the old people and how they treat the young people. I turned 60 this year. I'm a widow. There's children's safety at that park. You're not doing well for the older people in our community or the youth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That'll probably bring our public meeting to a conclusion for this evening. I would like to thank the Mayor and Council and for all you folks for participating in tonight's event. I think we have a lot of food for thought here, and we got some more homework to do. If you were unable to provide feedback tonight, please feel free to submit feedback through the city@charlottetown.ca by email. Residents can also drop off written feedback submissions to the city at 199 Queen. And please address all written submissions to the attention of the Manager of Public Works. Our mailing address is P.O. Box 998, 199 Queen Street, Charlottetown, PEI, C1A 7K2. So, and with that, I would just like to say thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. It's very, very soothing to hear the passion, and we'll go back to the drawing table with some of this. Thank you very much.